The Second Coming. I am one of your hosts, guy that gets choked with a monster claw.
And I am Bruce Kulick with facial hair.
And this week we are rediscovering the Wendy O. Williams album, uh, Wow, or WOW, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people refer to this as the kind of unofficial Lost Kiss album because you basically have everyone except Vinnie Vincent and Mark St. John that was involved in Kiss up to that point on this record in one way or another. But of course, we'll get into more of that. But you know what? We gotta go to the right here a little bit because there's so much that just happened in the Kiss world. We gotta talk a little bit about it before we get into this.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, the cruise just ended. Um, Hopefully, anybody that watches us, if you went, you had a great time, got back safe, all that good stuff. I know our friend Lisa, she went. Everything went great with her. She had a great time. Um, but man, so we got kind of unreal, but we now have the exact date of when it's going to end. Um, what was it again? June
It was July 17th.
of 2021,
Right.
and it's going to be in New York City, of course, which it should be by all means. A lot of people speculate it might be in L.A., but New York, of course, makes perfect sense. And then, of course, leading up to that, they've announced, tons more tour dates. And thank God, as we all kind of speculated and hoped, they have a date booked for Dayton. I believe it's sometime in September of next year.
Right.
So I'm sure that'll be the Nutter Center. I really can't think of any other place they would play it except possibly UD, but UD rarely has shows anymore, so I don't see why they would play at UD. The Rose Music Center would be nice, but way too small. That thing would sell out too quick. So more than likely they'll be back at the Nutter Center. That's going to be awesome. Get to see them at least one last time. I would love to try to make it to New York for that very last show. That would be amazing. Um, go see some of the other Kiss sites and stuff around New York while we're there. So who knows? But we got plenty of time now. We know the exact date. Kiss Cruise 10 is happening for sure next year, same time frame. That would be cool too. So yeah, just a lot going on, man. So just let alone that, and then the stuff that happened on the cruise, of course. We kind of got our the deep cuts for this year. It's My Life. Yeah, I'm kind of fitting that we're covering this Wendy O. Williams album.
What are the odds?
That was cool, man. That right there alone made the whole show for me when I heard that they pulled out "It's My Life," and then let alone like "Larger Than Life," um, and then I'll let you take this here, the Bruce stuff, man.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. You sent me the set list from the first night. And of course, on that set list, it didn't mention that several of them were in medleys, which wasn't necessarily a takeaway. But when I saw that, I was like, holy crap! He played like all of Animalize. He played. Yeah, those were songs that I figured if they ever played those live at all, it was probably once or twice, and we had long passed the opportunity to hear any of that. And all of the videos I've seen, as we all know, Mike Brunn is great with filming that stuff and posting it, and it all sounds great. I gotta, just like we've talked about these guys before, the band he's got is just incomparable. The oh, I can't ever remember their names. I feel bad, but the guy that sings the Paul songs, he doesn't sound that much like Paul, but he nails those vocals.
Yeah,
The even the high '80s stuff that Paul probably would have had trouble hitting back in the day, even he's nailing it right on. And then the bassist, he sounds exactly like '80s era Gene. I mean, it's uncanny. If you look away, you'd swear it was Gene. It's
yes, yes. And I didn't know, but I guess those guys are actually Slash's band, his backup band.
wow.
So very cool, man. Man, Bruce, much respect to Grand Funk and all that, but you've got to take this band out on the road and do it. I mean, whether it's opening for Kiss or doing your own tour, hey, it's got to be done. I would love to see them bring that band to even the expo and perform at the expo. Just amazing stuff. That was so cool to hear.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely.
Um, but again, Kiss, they pulled out Larger Than Life. That was cool to hear. Um, what else? There was a couple things that they kind of hadn't performed in a few years that they brought back. I think like Strutter might have been one. And
Right.
so,
God Gave Rock and Roll to You was on there, which is unusual.
right, performing that live again, cool. Man, and then there's always just countless activities that goes on. I was watching all kinds of videos. Even up to like yesterday, just like there's just been so many. Eric Singer had the drum off thing, and uh, painting class with Paul Stanley, pick throwing contest with Gene Simmons, and Are You Smarter Than a Rock God with Gene Simmons, and Paul Stanley reading a bedtime story. Just all kinds of cool stuff like that, and of course Q&As and all this stuff was going on, and just a lot of great stuff. Again, we always shout out Mike Brunn every year because he kind of is the go-to channel for all those videos. He takes all that time to film all that stuff, and so go check all that stuff out. It's fun to watch. Especially the drum stuff for me was cool. They had a line of judges, and they would all call out a song, and that person would have to play that song. Just like kind of a part of it. And the winner ended up winning one of Eric's signature snare drums, which was
Wow.
really cool. And then they mentioned that they were going to do a feature on that person on the digital version of Modern Drummer magazine as well. So a lot of cool stuff going on.
Right.
So man, check that stuff out. If any of you guys were there, hey, tell us some more stories. We'd love to hear some more of that stuff going on.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe next year we'll be on there with you, but
Yeah.
well, it's doubtful. But hey, there's always that hope we have every year.
Exactly. Every year. Have you heard the latest things as far as people running their mouth in interviews that's been going on?
No.
Oh, two different things that I've heard just in the last week here. First, being apparently Doc McGee has said that they've gotten into contact with Ace and Peter about the final show. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there, or whether that's even true, of course. How will they be involved? Will they be in costume? You know,
Hmm.
I mean, that sort of thing. Also, now I take it this happened a little while back, but I didn't see it till just this week. Apparently, recently, Bob Kulick has been quoted in an interview saying several really terrible things about Bruce.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, who saw that coming? So apparently, maybe there was a big nasty break there after they played together on the cruise a couple of years ago, and then we wondered why Bob stepped down and Bruce continued. But yeah, Bob's equally as nasty things as he's ever said about Ace. It's like, holy crap, dude, calm down.
Wow. I'm only speculating, of course, but maybe he was trying to get Bruce to take that out on tour, and maybe he just got upset that he either wasn't able to or didn't want to. Maybe again, I'm speculating, but um, yeah, I have no idea what that's about. But I do recall hearing Doc. He was talking a little bit about that stuff during his Q&A from one of the videos I caught, and I can almost guarantee that they already planned to do some major stuff for that very last show, whether it's having Ace and Peter or something in general. Because looking at the tour dates, once the cruise hits, that's it. Like they have nothing booked from the cruise until that show in like July. So we're talking however many months there.
Right.
That I speculate that'll be them gearing up and rehearsing and getting things ready for that very last show that are being planned. So I think they've already got a lot of ideas in the can. Whether or not they can get Ace and Peter to take part, or maybe even Vinny, who knows? I'm sure Bruce will be up there. I mean, my God, he was up there during the acoustic sail away stuff again, which that was cool too. They had the new rotating stage, which made it kind of nice, so everyone could kind of get a cool view of the band and stuff, and so that was cool too. Um, but yeah, that's my speculation is that they've already got some major things planned for that very last date, and after the cruise next year, they're just going to kind of rest up and rehearse, get everything ready, and all that, all those plans and gear. So,
Right.
um, I don't know if they're gonna maybe announce if Ace and Peter or whoever gets locked in, or if they're just gonna make it a total surprise. I'd almost think why not just make it a surprise, just like it was at Unplugged.
Right.
No one expected that, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here they are, and finally it happens, even though we had to wait till the very last show. But finally they get them to come up and do something. So who knows, man? But kind of bittersweet. I mean, we knew it was coming eventually, but now to have that official end date, kind of, it's kind of exciting, but at the same time, it's kind of like, oh my god, like, what's it going to be like after that, and what's going to happen?
Right.
But hey, again, like we've said before, man, it's all about the celebration of the band, having a good time. We're gonna for sure get to see them at least one more time close to us. Um, all that other stuff. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. But I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to cover about recent events, or should we get on into the album here?
Uh, yeah, I think let's hit the album.
All right, let's get into it. So once again, Wendy O. Williams. Maybe first we should catch up because we did get a couple votes for the last couple albums.
Right. Yes, we do have just 2 comments, and then some more rankings. So we actually got a couple of comments on our Out of Control episode from a few weeks ago, or geez, I guess 2 months ago, actually. Woo! Time flies. This is a name I've never seen before, unless I'm remembering wrong. Both comments are from someone named Anthem Incorporated.
Hmm.
Uh, the first says, I think you guys would totally make the 8-hour trip if Rabble's band was playing a gay bar. Haha. So naturally, my suspicion is, did Gino make a new account? And then of course he also comments, "Are you Bruce Kulick with facial hair?"
Yes,
Uh,
I
yeah. Bruce has facial hair. So yes, interesting stuff. Good to have some lighthearted comments. That's for sure.
am. Hmm.
Okay, so we got votes from Steve and Rochelle McGowan for Black and Blue and Was Not Was and Wendy O. Williams for today too. So dealing with Born to Laugh at Tornadoes. Steve ranked this album 4 out of 10. His top 3 was Smile, Shake Your Head, Let's Go to Bed, and Knocked Down, Made Small, Treated Like a Rubber Ball. Rochelle ranked that album 2 out of 10. Her top 3 was Professor Knight, Zaz Turned Blue, and Knocked Down, Made Small, Treated Like a Rubber Ball. So that did it actually brought our overall ranking down to 3.5 out of 10. It was at 4. That changed around our top 3 a little bit. That actually put Knockdown Made Small up into the number 1 spot. It wasn't in our top 4 at all, and it went all the way up to number 1.
Oh wow.
And then Smile is now in the number 2, and it used to be number 3. And then Out Come the Freaks, the Return of the Valley of, is now in the 3rd place, and it was our number 1. So interesting change there.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Steve and Rochelle.
Yeah. We also got their votes here for Black and Blue. So Steve ranked that album 6 out of 10. He did put Action in the number 10 spot, and he noted, not a bad cover. I like the Def Leppard version better. Definitely agree, as we discussed last week.
Hmm.
His top 3 were Hold On to 18, Auto Blast, and Show Me the Night. Rochelle's picks, she ranked this album 5 out of 10. Her top 3 were One for the Money, Show Me the Night, and Wicked Bitch. Interesting number one there. So that didn't do a gigantic amount of changing our overall. It did bring the album down to 5.7 out of 10, and it was at a 6, um, which is a problem because that means it's now ranked lower overall than the Michael Bolton album. So just the best thing then. But our top three actually stayed the same. However, it did rock the boat as far as all of those scores. If we got even one more person voting on that album, it would absolutely change all three of the top three. They're that close. So
Wow.
wouldn't take much to rock that. Also, regarding Wendy O. Williams, Rochelle ranked this one a 9 out of 10. And her top three were I Love Sex and Rock and Roll, Opus in C minor 7, and It's My Life. Steve, he's actually got a whole bunch to say on this one. He's written here, love, love, love this album. I remember when I got this album, when it came out, how excited I was. This was around the time Ace left Kiss. I was sad at the time that Ace was no longer in Kiss, and to show that he was on this album with the other members of Kiss, from Kiss, was refreshing and exciting to me. This is the type of album you just want to turn the volume all the way up to 11. The drums are so heavy, and Eric Carr's drums on Legends Never Die has the same Creatures recording sound on the drums. The first few beats you hear, you know from the get-go that's Eric Carr on drums. Actually, all these drums on all the tracks did, in a way. I wonder if these were leftover songs from Creatures. Never looked into it that much. I never was much of a fan of Wendy or the Plasmatics, but she absolutely made this album scream to the fullness. I love all the songs on here. This was not an easy one to list what my least favorite song was, but overall, I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, so some strong, some fighting words there for some people, I would imagine. His top three here, Bump and Grind, Ready to Rock, and It's My Life.
See, Steve used to dress up like Wendy O. Williams for Halloween, and he would dance around the bumping grind.
Yeah. Oh, it would be funny to see that picture, but
Yeah,
I'm
I'd like to have an appetite for the next month.
I do kind of want to see Steve with a mohawk. Steve, come on, let's make this happen.
Yes, a back mohawk.
Yeah. All right, so album info then.
All
Eh?
right, I'm curious because there wasn't a lot on the back of the liner notes. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I might just read pretty much everything on this page because it's very very interesting stuff. You mentioned earlier that this album includes everybody but Vinny and Mark St. John, and actually Vinny is on this album.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so like practically everyone.
Wow.
All right, so WOW or WOW, or some people just call it Wendy O. Williams, is the debut solo album by American singer Wendy O. Williams, released in 1984 by Passport Records. It is her first album appearance to be credited to her after the success with the Plasmatics, which had gone on a hiatus during this time. Apparently, on the last Plasmatics album, prior to this, they actually opened for Kiss on tour, which is strange. I can't imagine that. This would have been the Creatures tour. By the end of the tour, the Plasmatics recording contract with Capitol Records wasn't renewed, and Gene Simmons approached Wendy and also Rod Swinson about producing an album for them, just to do something. Apparently, he wanted to produce a Plasmatics album, but to avoid the legal issues with Capitol, they decided to just make it a solo album. And very interesting. A lot of people were on the fence about this because it was considered hard rock or heavy metal, and of course, the Plasmatics was more along punk. So this is not what they were expecting from her. She was nominated for a Grammy for Best Female Rock Vocal Performance. Notice there that that was nominated and not won. Several band members from the Plasmatics appear on this album. Wes Beach, who I believe played guitar, and also T.C. Tolliver, who played drums. Simmons, Gene, played the bass under pseudonym stage name of Reginald Van Helsing. You've got Michael Ray, who did most of the lead guitar work on the album, and a superb job, by the way. Of course, we've also got Ace playing. Vinny plays a little bit. Paul plays some, and Eric Carr plays drums on Legends Never Die. This includes some songs we recognize, or we should, as Kiss fans. Both "It's My Life" and "Thief in the Night" were technically Kiss songs, and from what I understand, I think other ones were supposed to be as well. Let's see.
Well, the very last song, "Ain't None of Your Business," I was thinking I could have swore there's a demo of Kiss doing that, or at least the same title.
Right. Yeah, the writing credits on that song are Gene, Eric Carr, and Vinnie Vincent.
Okay.
So some other interesting things this thing's mentioning. Apparently, Wendy Williams decided to stop doing the mohawk during the making of this album and grew her hair out.
Hmm.
This is the first time Gene Simmons ever played outside of Kiss, at least on a record, because at the time we didn't have the Wicked Lester thing. So,
Mhm.
uh, "Legends Never Die" was originally from an unused song on Kiss's Creatures of the Night album.
Oh.
Apparently, there's a demo called "When the Legend Dies." That's them, which is probably why that's Eric Carr playing drums. It probably wasn't that he came did a guest appearance. It probably was because he recorded it thinking it was be on the Creatures album. Uh, and then Wendy just replaced Gene's vocals. Um, yeah, I guess that's pretty much all of the super interesting stuff. We do have the personnel here. So, of course, we've got Wendy O. Williams on vocals, Wes Beach, who played rhythm guitar and also the leads on "It's My Life." Michael Ray, who played leads most everywhere else. Gene Simmons credited as Reginald Van Helsing on the bass and also producing. T.C. Tolliver on the drums. Also, we've got Ace Frehley, who played the lead guitar on "Bump and Grind." Paul Stanley played guitar on "Ready to Rock." Eric Carr did the drums on "Legends Never Die." Vinnie Vincent played guitar on "Ain't None of Your Business." You got Mitch Weissman, who played piano on Opus in C minor 7. That's another name, a lot of co-writes, and I think he played some lead on Creatures of the Night. Also, Mickey Free, who played the acoustic guitar on Legends Never Die. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff for this one.
Yeah, the "Ain't None of Your Business." That must be a different version because the demo was Peter singing
Oh,
originally, so they may have just rewritten it. Um, I forget the other thing now. Kind of weird that they didn't mention Vinny at all in the liner notes, but maybe that's because of what was going on at the time with their, um, you know, whatever you want to call it.
right. Yeah, this would have been recorded around the time he was on his way out from Kiss.
Yes,
So,
yes. All right, so starting things off is "I Love Sex and Rock and Roll." This is my number 5. So the album, we start the album out. It's got a nice driving drum beat. Um, and, Steve was reading my mind here. Immediately, the drum sounds, reminiscent of Creatures. That you got that real low end thumping bass with the reverb in it, kick drums. Um, honestly, I was never a big fan of Wendy's voice. To me, and I do mean this as a compliment, but she sounds like the female Alice Cooper. Uh, Pretty cool song though to start the album. You got that classic Wendy attitude on this song. By the way, it was no secret that her and Gene had a little thing going around this time. Gene's talked about it plenty. Um, so I'm sure this is something they probably sang together in bed. So my number 5.
right on. This one was my number 6.
Okay.
Yeah, that was also my first note. Definitely hearing the Creature's influence and the drum sound. Um, I do. At the time, I kind of hoped the drum sound would clean up a little. It's definitely not quite as well done as Creatures was,
Hmm.
but you can tell that's what Gene was going for. I also noted that is absolutely Gene on bass. That is without a doubt you can just hear them. I also noted that I really appreciated the faster middle part of the song when everything picks up. I was starting to get a little bored with it.
Right. Savannah, did you rank it, you said?
Yeah, I did. Which one is the first one?
Yeah, we go.
Mhm.
I ranked that as number 3.
Number 3.
Yep.
All right. So next up is the big, well-known hit, I guess you could say. It's My Life. This is my number 2. So obviously, as we all know, this is the song that Gene gave to her, which thankfully we finally got the Kiss version on the box set, 2001, I believe that was. Uh, Although I prefer the Kiss version of this one, this is a really good version. And this was the only version of the song we had for many years. Little under 20 years, and the song does fit Wendy to a T. At the same time, I definitely see why Gene felt like this song would work for her, and it did. And also, just to mention, really enjoyed the guitar solo on here. It's pretty close to the Kiss version, the best I could tell, and just has a nice harmony to it. So good version.
Yeah. This is actually my number 7. Noted, not sure I like her voice at this point. It's interesting, but it's just a little too weird. It felt like the Joan Jett thing was coming in, and this is where I definitely started. Her voice would work for the punk thing. I could definitely see where it would make sense for that style, but this style, definitely prefer Gene Simmons' vocals on either the Creatures era or the Psycho Circus era demo of that song. But that's strange because I also noted I do really like the lead guitar in both the first 2 songs. Michael Ray and Wes Beach were definitely not messing around on these.
Absolutely.
This one was my number 8 because
Wow.
I just like the Kiss.
All right.
It just wasn't Kiss.
Yeah. I can understand, like if you're used to hearing that Kiss version and you hear this, I could see it being a big shock. Like, whoa.
I had never heard this album before today, and yeah, I was used to the other one, so I'm like, it's just
Right.
not.
Rules are made to be broken. Can't kill what you don't understand. I see you're gone and scared. I never knew you cared. Go hide your head in the sand. Been to hell and back. I survived and that's a fact. It's my life, and I'll do what I wanna do. What I wanna do.
Next up, we have Priestess, my number 7 here. Forget the title of the song, but to me, it kind of sounded like something Judas Priest could have done. That driving riff throughout the song, just kind of that typical 80s metal type of thing that you would expect. But that was about it. This one, close to the bottom for me. So this one didn't really do as much for me here.
Nice. This was actually both of our number 4s.
Okay.
I can definitely see why some people argue that this could be a Kiss album at this point. Musically speaking, it's very reminiscent of the kind of stuff they were doing in the Creatures era. It's neat to hear that. That if I ever listen to this album again, it'll probably just be because of that. It sounds like a Kiss album, but with like they just grabbed somebody off the sidewalk and said, "Hey, sing this real quick." I just cannot get into her voice.
Yeah, using the term singing very loosely.
Yes.
Next is Thief in the Night. This is my number 1. You know, when I was first listening to this album, I totally forgot this one was on here. All I was thinking about was "It's My Life," and it was kind of a nice, I don't know, recharge on this. You know, after not hearing the album for so long. So obviously, we all know Kiss went on to do this song in Crazy Nights. Um, I don't consider it a cover though, since Paul wrote it, and basically I'm sure it was the same thing as "It's My Life" here. He just gave it to her at the time, and then of course decided to maybe he didn't like this version. Maybe that's why they went on to do their own version in Kiss. And who knows? But I really enjoyed it though. Great. It's a great version of the song. The background vocals during the chorus, like to me, sound exactly the way it does on the Kiss version, which
Yeah.
came like 2-3 years later, uh, 4 years, whatever it was. But man, so really like this one.
The intro caught me off guard on this one. I wasn't, I figured it was going to start the same way. Uh, Interesting beginning, but I pretty much sat here in open-mouthed horror throughout the rest of it. This is both of our number nines.
Oh wow.
I've always really liked the Kiss version, so this was almost sacrilege to me.
Even
Right.
like one of my favorite Kiss songs of all time.
Is
And
it?
and I was like, I can't. But I was like, I can't. It's like one of my favorite, almost one of my favorite Kiss songs, and I was like, no.
This is going to be interesting in the long run.
Yeah.
All right, next is Opus in C minor 7. This is my number 8. I guess you could call this a ballad. It does have some moments where it sort of picks up. We get a lot of piano throughout this song. But really, by the end of the song, I was just noting, like, man, this one just sort of dragged on. Didn't really care a lot for it, to be honest.
Indeed. This one's actually my number 2.
Mm.
I noted that I was liking it so far based on the intro. It was a little bit different. And it was at this point that I flipped back over to the Wikipedia page and started looking at the writing credits. And I noticed that, at least as far as this album, I was liking the ones that didn't have Gene's name in the writing credits better. It was like, when he tried to write stuff for her, it worked better if he just did it. But if, if her and Wes Beach sat down and wrote one, which I think this was, or no, this was her and Swinson. Is it Rod Swinson? I don't know, whatever that guy's name was. I said it earlier. I don't remember, but yeah, it was. To me, it just kind of felt like maybe they know her a little bit better, and so they know what works better.
True, true. And did I get that wrong? Is it major or minor?
Minor.
Minor, okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember. And what did you rank this one, Savannah?
This one I ranked number 5.
Okay.
It was kind of like right in the middle for me. It wasn't bad per se, but I just don't feel like she has a ballady voice.
Right.
Her voice fits more, I think, better with the heavier style. And when she tries to do a ballad, I feel like it doesn't change all that much. So it kind of weird. So this was kind of just like in the middle for me.
Yeah, it's like Alice Cooper trying to sing a ballad or something.
Yeah. Or Joan Jett trying to sing a ballad.
Oh, let's see. Next we have Ready to Rock. My number 6 here. So this one starts out side 2 on the vinyl, and once again, we kind of get a similar drum beat to start this song, just like we did on the song to start the album on the first side. So again, that kind of same thing. The low end kick drum, kind of a marching sort of beat in a way. Of course, you got Paul Stanley on guitar on this one, but I've been waiting for more of this song as I was listening to it, but so far it just sounds like one long intro, and it's over.
Yeah.
And by the way, like like this, I don't know why, but this album out of all of them, I was finding myself like almost getting behind on the notes because I found myself just like I was so drawn to the music, like trying to pay attention. I'd be sitting here trying to type thoughts real quick, and then I'd be kind of stopping. The next thing I know, the song was over, and the next song's on, and I'm like trying to catch up, thinking what I was like. I don't know why it was like this album over all the other ones so far. It was just.
It's still, I mean, I think more so than any of the other ones we've done so far, sounds like a Kiss album.
True. That's
I'm
probably
not
what it
in the
was.
vocals. Yeah.
I think a lot of it, a lot of the drums were catching me because, like I said, man, this, props to the drummer, man, because it sounds like it almost could have been Eric Carr. I mean, and then obviously when you have that sound where it almost sounds like the son of Creatures of the Night or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
I think that's part of what was catching me throughout this album. So.
Yeah, this one was my number 3. I thought that the echo effect on the beginning was interesting. Not something I would have thought to do for sure. And though I did, at one point in the middle, I was like, man, shouldn't that be done now? Like, shouldn't that echo thing stop? Um, as it went, I was like, yeah, I'm not really that bothered by it, I guess. It feels like they tried to go for an anthem, and I assume that this was kind of it, and it sort of worked. Sort of worked for me. But yeah, I agree. It felt like it should go somewhere, and it never quite did.
Mm-hmm. And it ended up being, as far as I could tell, like the longest song on the album.
Mm.
And it was like Paul was like, "Oh, my song's going to be the longest one," but then it was just, I don't know, it just felt too much of a mess.
Right. And interestingly, he doesn't have a writing credit on this. So he apparently just came in and played.
This one was my number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, I liked this one a lot because as I was listening to it, I found myself kind of bopping along with it, whereas I hadn't really up to that point
Mm-hmm.
so much. So I was like, I'll put this one a little higher just because I could find myself rocking out to this song.
Right. Right. Next up, we have Bump and Grind. No, this is not a cover of the R. Kelly song. This is my number 4. So, of course, we have Ace on this song. And, man, what a smoking solo, I thought. That very, very classic Ace, Kiss-sounding type of solo. Again, I mentioned here, which I just said it on the last song, not sure who the drummer was at the time I was listening to this. But, he really, gives a lot of life to this song. And what an ending on it, too, man. Just kind of goes a little crazy there towards the end, some double bass. And, again, it's like, oh, I wish it was Eric Carr there. It would have been that much better. But, again, major props to that guy. So, some really cool drumming on this album, and really enjoyed the sound of the drums overall so far.
Yeah. This was my number 5. Definitely hearing Gene in the background vocals.
Yes. Yes.
You hear him quite a bit throughout the album, but that one definitely stood up. And I noted too, I normally like upbeat songs, throughout these past ones. Usually it's whichever ones that are upbeat are up high for me. But this one just seemed okay. I personally felt like the pace of the song didn't match that big Creatures drum tone that well. It was a little bit too much. But on the other hand, it was really cool to hear what Ace's guitar might have sounded like in the Creatures-ish mix.
That is true. I didn't think of it that way.
This one was my number 1.
Nice.
Yes, I liked this one a lot. I didn't even mind her vocals very much on this one. I feel like it matched really well.
Mm-hmm.
It was more like a punk rocky kind of, and then Ace's solo was just banging in this song.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Absolutely. It was almost like this is how much better Creatures could have been with and not that Creatures isn't great, but
Right.
An interesting peek into what may have been.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So next up we have Legends Never Die. This ended up being number 3. Much better. I guess we could call this the second ballad of the record, but the much better one in my opinion. Again, as we've said, many times, Eric Carr on drums. Not sure why he didn't just play on the whole album, though. A lot of the playing sounds like him anyway. Thankfully, Wendy shows more of an actual singing voice here on this song. Not as gravelly and all that as pretty much every other thing. Eric's fills are, signature Eric stuff. Makes the song kind of remind me of Forever in that way. I still just wish Eric had played on at least one of the heavier songs on the album, but, hey, cool anyway, and, how fitting of a title, the one that Eric happens to be on, and, not knowing 7 years later that he'd be gone, but, very cool. And now that you mentioned at the beginning that this was originally something that was going to be on Creatures, I do see why they cut it, because having 2 ballads wouldn't have worked for Creatures, and I agree that I Still Love You is still the better one.
Right.
But I'm glad that this did make it into some capacity of an official recording, on here at least. So now I'm gonna have to look for the Kiss demo, which is probably in that collection we have somewhere. I'm gonna have to dig through those folders and.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did notice the drum sound did change just a bit on this album, and that's probably because, like you said, Eric had probably already had these drums recorded, because it sounds closer to the really it is the Creature's drums that he is playing on this song. Like you
Right.
could just tell in those the tone of the toms and all that stuff when he's doing those fills. So it doesn't. You can hear it just enough that the sound changes a bit from all the other songs on this one. But
Right.
so very cool. I mean, this probably would have ended up being number 1, had it not been for the power of those other 2. But just another great track.
Yes. Yeah, this one actually is number 1 for me.
Awesome.
Yes, that I love the acoustic guitar tone. This is the one that's Mickey Free, right? Yeah, Mickey Free played the acoustic on this one. Just sounded great, well played. I would love to know how they got that tone, because that was great. If there's anything that ruins it for me, though, yeah, it's her voice. Again, with her voice, I don't like the dirt she sings with, and I was really hoping on this one that it would lighten up more than it did. I also noted I liked the drum tone on this one, and then flipped over to the Wikipedia page and was like, this is the one Eric Carr. Big surprise. But yeah, you can absolutely tell that this came from the Creature sessions. I just think, we heard from Michael James Jackson about how they sent the drum tone down an elevator shaft and recorded that and then mixed it in. I feel like they mixed that reverb a little bit lower on this than on Creatures. So it's kind of another interesting production thing to hear what the Creature's drums sound like with less of that elevator shaft reverb.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, they tried to make it sound more like the other drums on here, but you can still tell just enough. And
Yep.
I guess, to be honest, I guess I was kind of ignoring her voice during this, because I was focusing so much more on what Eric was doing, and so I guess in a way, but when her voice would stand out, I was like, oh, it does sound like she's kind of actually singing a little bit this time, so that helped it for me. Savannah.
This one was my number 6. It was right next to the other ballad for me.
Mm.
Like, this would have been way higher on my list, maybe even my number 1, had it not been for her voice. I mean, we keep going back to that, but it really is hard to wrap around. And it was hard to focus on anything else. But musically, this song is amazing. I loved it. I was like, if it just would have had Paul singing, I would have been like, yeah, it probably would have been one of my favorites. But yeah, it was hard to focus on anything else. But yeah, compared to the other ballad, at least she did try to sing it a little bit more. But it's still that gravelly, dirty. It just didn't fit it, I don't think. So that's why it was kind of low for me.
Right. I would have even liked to heard Eric sing it for that matter too.
Totally.
Yeah. Ain't None of Your Business. This ended up being my number 9. Um, I don't know. I just felt like it was a pretty vanilla song to end the album with, and just didn't really care much for it. And now knowing that Vinny played on it, I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. But just again, it was that whole thing like, oh, it's at least it's a fairly upbeat song to end the album with. But it just felt like it was hardly any time was taken to write the song. It just I don't know, and especially if it was basically a rewritten demo or something to that effect. I don't know. It just you would think it would have been turned out better, but I don't. Not
Yeah.
hard telling what happened there.
For sure. I was just taking a peek through some of those demos to see if I could find that one, but I'll have to look a little closer later.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was my number 8. I definitely agree. Definitely not the album closer we've been looking for. And yeah, even in comparison to the rest of the songs on the album, it just seems really plain, lifeless, and flat. It seems more like they put it at the end of the album hoping everybody would forget about it rather than trying to be big about it,
Right.
This was my number 7. The only reason it was my number 7 was because the 2 Kiss covers, or they weren't Kiss covers at the time, but for me, they're Kiss covers.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the only reason why this one did make it to the very bottom, because I agree it was flat. And then the background vocals, I feel, were kind of just odd. They were kind of weird. I don't feel like they really fit very well. And then, yeah, it was just kind of bland. Like, it was definitely not the chocolate of the ice cream. It was vanilla.
It wasn't even a twist cone. I mean.
Yeah, it was plain old vanilla. Not even French vanilla, just plain vanilla.
What'd you say the original title was of that? Of Legends Never Die?
When the Legend Dies.
When the Legend Dies. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing it on here so far.
I wonder if it's on one of the vault discs too. Yeah, yep, it is. It's on the very first disc. Legends
Oh.
Never Die. It still says on there.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll get back to that later. So, as far as an overall ranking, though, excuse me, I give this one a 4. Having almost every member of Kiss to that point in time on this album should have been a great thing. Other than a couple of the bass lines Gene played on a few of the songs, I felt the highlight was really Ace and Eric Carr. The song that Paul played on was too drawn out and not much to it. There's definitely some strong moments on this album. I Love Sex, It's My Life, Thief in the Night, Bump and Grind, Legends Never Die. Which for me, I would have rather this just been an EP instead of a full album. Some of the songs felt like they were written in a hurry to fill some space on the album. Wendy was one hell of a character. She did some things on stage that people would think of but not have the balls to do. But Wendy did them. Sometimes I think of her as like the female Gigi Allen, some of the things that she used to do. I don't dislike the album, but it definitely could have been a lot stronger. Had Dave just made it an EP or put a little more time into some of them songs. But still, give it a listen. If you're a hardcore Kiss fan, you're going to like the album at least one way or another. I mean, I don't think anyone's necessarily hates the album, but, there's got to be, you'll appreciate at least having, all the Kiss appearances and whatnot on there. And, and as always, as a lot of the Kiss fans call it, this is kind of the unofficial lost, quote unquote, Kiss record. So definitely give it a shot. But I just felt like there could have been more to it.
Yes. I gave this a 3. As per usual, I really wasn't sure what to expect going into this. I was excited knowing all the Kiss connections, But yeah, I'm feeling a little bit let down, honestly. It's been said fairly commonly that a lot of what Gene did outside Kiss was a bit
Hmm.
you know. And I think if this is indicative of his other projects, that's probably true. You know, the songs he had a co-write on for this album feel like stuff that wasn't good enough for Kiss, and for good reason. Uh, the versions of "It's My Life" and "Thief in the Night" are some of the low points for me personally on this. The production seems like Creatures, but not as good. And obviously, my biggest complaint is her voice. Uh, I was really hoping, especially on Legends Never Die, that she would just sing clean and normal. I feel like that would have been really, really good. And I'm sure the dirt thing she was doing worked really well for the punk stuff, but on this, I would much rather have heard Gene or Paul sing it.
Hmm.
I'm already looking forward to the demos of that stuff on, on the Vault and some of the stuff we have coming up just for that. Hearing some of these songs, at least from my point of view personally, the way they should have been.
Right.
A big saving grace for me on this album was the lead guitar, just generally. I wish there was a little bit more Vinny on Ain't None of Your Business. I would have liked to have heard him really cut loose. But other than that, the leads were great in every single song. As I mentioned before, West Beach and especially Michael Ray, they were not messing around at all. And Ace's solo and Bump and Grind sounded great. And like I mentioned earlier, it really made me wonder what Creatures of the Night would have sounded like with him on it. It's an interesting peek into that, the Creatures-esque production, but with Ace's guitar tone and his playing. And the solo doesn't sound like someone who could barely put their guitar on like they claim it was when he left. But yeah, overall, I can and don't get me wrong, I'm very disappointed to say something like this. I had a lot of high hopes for this. I can disappointedly say I'm glad there aren't any more of her albums on this list.
It's kind of thinking that as well.
Yeah.
I overall gave this a 2, just because it's not really my style. It, I mean, I'm glad that I heard it. I'm glad that I got to experience it, but that'll probably be the only time I ever listen to it, honestly. Except for maybe the couple that I really thought were kind of okay. And even those, I mean, if I don't ever hear it again, it's not really going to hurt me that much,
Hmm.
But yeah, overall, it was just, meh, for me, you know.
Yeah, this was probably only the second time I've listened to it, and at least probably 3 or 4 years since I first got it was the only time I saw. And really, it was only because of this. I mean, I don't know.
Yep.
Well, this is going to be interesting, especially with Steve and his 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I can't. That was the last thing I was expecting to see when I opened it. I gotta say. And like we used to say, we said this a lot throughout all the Kiss stuff. I mean, that's kind of the point of why we do this. It's interesting. It's more interesting than if we just agreed
Hmm.
on everything we said. It's more interesting to see somebody like Steve in the case of this album. We all kind of thought, and he loves it, and it was great. I'm glad he wrote a little paragraph like he did talking about it. It's cool to see the opinions. Oh, so you don't agree, but why? It's
Right.
cool.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's he was there like when this came out, like it was more. So this may have a whole different feel and meaning to him than me when I was 3, 4 years old and not knowing a thing about it when it came out and not hearing it until up to a few years ago. So again, that is what makes it unique because everything has a different meaning to everyone, and where you were at that time.
Right. All right. So our placing here. All right, I'll make sure I got everything in order. Okay, so this one did end up with a 5.6 out of 10 average overall rating, which is pretty high. But yeah, of course, Steve and Rochelle's high ranked put that up there. That actually puts it right behind the Black and Blue album we did last week, which has a 5.7 and fairly high up in all of our rankings at the moment.
I could see that. I kind of expected it to.
Yeah. We did have one tie, not an important one though. This is another one though where our top three are in kind of shaky standing. So anybody else that votes on this could upset the balance pretty easy. So in last place for this album, it's number 8, 8th place. Ain't None of Your Business. This is pretty much the only song that the 5 of us that voted on this agreed, meh. Wasn't bottom of everybody's, but it was pretty much bottom of everybody's. Tied for 7th place, we've got Priestess and Thief in the Night.
Oh.
Yeah, both of our number ones didn't fare too well here. In 6th place, Legends Never Die. In 5th place, Opus and C minor 7. In 4th place, I Love Sex and Rock and Roll. And our top 3 for this album, in 3rd place, Bump and Grind. In 2nd place, Ready to Rock. And in 1st place, It's My Life.
I kind of figured It's My Life was going to be number 1.
Yep, that was pretty much guaranteed. Both Steve and Rochelle had that as number 1, and you with number 2. Pretty much put it right there.
All right, so get some more votes in, man. We got to get some of them songs up to where they should be.
Yes, yeah. And get rid of these ties, man. We've still got ties, I think, in every single album we've done.
Yeah, I believe we do, yeah.
Where's Jay? Jay Rucker, man, where did you go?
Yeah, Javier Rabble, where you at?
Yeah,
RJ.
get in here.
So, next week we're kind of back to another iffy one I'm kind of worried about. We're back to Michael Bolton.
Yeah.
The album Everybody's Crazy with Bruce Kulick again. But then right after that, we're right back to Black and Blue, Without Love. And then after that, some of you may say, what? But we have a Black Sabbath album. Some of you, what? Yes, Eric Singer is on this album. He played with Black Sabbath at one time. Some may not know that.
Yep.
And right after Black Sabbath, right back to Black and Blues. So it's we're pretty much nailing all these Black and Blues right off the bat. A lot of them.
Yes.
And we are getting ever closer to the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, the Fraley's Comet, White Tiger, a lot of good stuff. And unfortunately, there's still one more Michael Bolton album in there after all those.
Yeah. We will
But
never.
hey, I'm hoping to be somewhat surprised, like I was with the first Bolton album, where like, it's not that horrible.
Yeah.
It's actually some decent stuff, but we'll see.
Yes.
All right, well, I think that wraps it up then. Wendy O. Williams, that was an interesting episode. Get some more votes in, please, and let's break up some more of these ties. And go ahead and get your votes in for the next couple albums coming up. All right, then. Until next week, that will do it for us. We will see you all later.